James Benefico is an entrepreneur and natural bodybuilder from Austin, Texas. He's also the CEO and founder of Organic Muscle, the newest podcast sponsor for the Way Forward, and we're so grateful for that. James and I had an incredible conversation relating to a number of topics like health, fitness, spirituality, and the state of the world. And because I'm still working out some of the kinks with my in-person podcast setup, we had some technical difficulties at the very end of this episode. It's only at the very end, so you'll be able to watch the majority of this episode, but towards the end, you'll just have to listen to us talk instead of staring at our beautiful faces. So, also, we're happy to remind you, as I said before, that the Way Forward podcast is now sponsored by Organic Muscle. And Organic Muscle is revolutionizing sports nutrition by exclusively utilizing non-GMO ingredients from USDA Organic Farms. So you can experience the fusion of organic purity and scientific excellence at organicmuscle.com and use code FORWARD15 at checkout for 15% off. Enjoy the episode. Listen to the language of the last 3.5 years. Lockdowns, travel restrictions, stay-at-home orders. This rhetoric, written by government agencies and corporate media, speaks to a clear intention, a concerted effort to keep us in place. Fortunately for us, a real grassroots movement, powered by real men and women, can never be stopped. Because mankind will always find the way forward. And this is where it all starts. With the Way Forward's new membership platform, you can connect with like-minded community and like-minded businesses near you by simply typing in your zip or postal code and setting a radius. We also have a marketplace featuring the best holistic health brands and products with deals you won't find anywhere else. And the best part is, you pay whatever you want to be a part of it. The Way Forward starts with a growing community coming together to share ideas, form local groups, and conduct business with like-minded men and women. Because if we're constantly being told what to do by so-called authorities, it's easy to feel helpless. But it's essential to know that we're not. Each of us has the power, and that power amplifies when we come together. There are many more health-conscious and sovereign-minded men and women than we realize, and this is where we all meet. Visit thewayforward.com to join virtually, connect locally, and pay whatever you want to be a part of it. This is the Way Forward. James, thanks for joining me, man. You're a wealth of knowledge on fitness stuff, but it also turns out you're a wealth of knowledge on Tartaria, on plant medicine, on that tobacco was one of the biggest crops in the United States back in the day, which I did not know until you just said that. I guess it would make sense though, especially because it was probably a lot of Native Americans cultivating it at the time. But yeah, man, I've been looking forward to this conversation, and I want to say first off, thank you so much for being a sponsor of the Way Forward.
Oh,
and
it's my pleasure.
We were sharing before, like, I'm not a salesy guy, so I really struggle with promoting things, and I have a lot of stuff in our marketplace for the Way Forward. But even with that, I still struggle to promote stuff that I actively use. But when you reached out and said you'd be willing to sponsor, I was like, absolutely, man, because I use your stuff. I use the pre-workout. I'm taking the Tomcat LE, and it's incredible stuff.
Thank you, man. And it's part of the reason I appreciate you is because you're not this salesy guy. You know, it's very authentic.
Yeah.
And it's almost a little like humble the way you present it, which I like in the supplement space, especially. It's so like cringe some of the way.
Well, I feel like because the supplement space is so superficial, that kind of bleeds into the people who take supplements typically. And that's not always the case, but I think you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's kind of an industry built on lies in a lot of ways. You have guys on a ton of juice and steroids, and they're promoting protein powder, you know, take this and look like me. So there's a lot of dishonesty. Not that there's not a lot of great people and great companies out there, but we're trying to do things a little differently. So this partnership is perfect.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. So let's start with your fitness journey first.
Sure. Yeah. So I used to be a pretty heavy fellow. I grew up in the Northeast in New York and Connecticut. Mom was Jewish, dad was Italian, grew up in an Italian neighborhood. And, you know, me and my boys, we would eat sandwiches and pizza and drink beer.
Especially in the Northeast, where like I will say this as someone who doesn't really eat bread anymore. Like if you're gonna eat bread, the best tasting, I'm probably not the healthiest, best tasting bread though, like bagel shops in the Northeast. I mean, because I went to school in New York, so I remember.
Yeah,
like, dude,
it's a problem.
It's a problem. And you're Italian, so.
Oh my goodness, we would eat. And my nickname. Have you ever heard the term gavone? It's an Italian slang. It means like a slovenly pig.
Okay.
And that was the nickname I earned through my eating capabilities. So I got really big. I actually got a very bad case of gynecomastia.
Okay, and what's that?
That's man boobs.
Oh man.
So I had some gazongas. Like
oh man.
I dated a girl for 2 years in high school and never took my shirt off in front of her. That's how ashamed I was.
Damn, man. Yeah.
So and beer is so estrogenic.
Oh yeah.
So totally. Estrogenic, and we were drinking a ton of beer. So I got big and I did not feel good. I played football as a lineman. I was pretty good, but I didn't really dedicate myself to it fully, which I regret. But so the first part of my journey was being unhealthy, you know, and that continued through college. A big awakening for me was when my mom got cancer shortly after I got out of college, and I was very unhealthy at this time. She got diagnosed with a very non-aggressive form of cancer. But her doctors immediately recommended that she get on an extremely aggressive radiation and chemotherapy protocol, right?
Oh, man. Yeah.
So she got on that. She listened to her doctors. And within a month or two, it had transformed into an extremely deadly form of cancer. So they gave her about 6 months to live at a certain point. I was in the hospital with her. And hospitals, I mean, you know, God bless the people who have to deal with it, but it's a very dark place and like just not a conducive environment for healing. No. Bright lights, it's scary.
All white rooms. The people who work there, despite being well-intentioned, oftentimes don't even really enjoy what they're doing and like don't look at their patients as actual human beings anymore a lot of the times.
And a lot of I know some nurses and they've really like desensitized themselves like in a major way because being around sick, dying people in that environment, it's got to be very traumatizing. But anyways, one night I was sitting in the room with my mom and nurse came in with her dinner and it was a hot dog, chips, and a soda. And this is someone who's dying of cancer. So I was not a healthy person at that time, but intuitively, I knew that this was not what you should be feeding someone who's fighting for their life, right? So I got upset. Her doctor came in a little while later and I was like, hey, isn't there something healthier we could feed my mom? And he scoffed at me and he goes, doesn't matter what they eat. Just like they're their little boy. So that really pissed me off. And it kind of sent me down this rabbit hole where I really started learning about nutrition and health and the role diet plays in formation of disease. So my mom miraculously survived after getting an experimental stem cell transplant. So that was one of the hardest moments of my life when she was going in because a lot of people die during the procedure. And then there's an extremely high likelihood that you pass within 6 months. But she survived. She's with us today. She's doing pretty well, although she's on a lot of pharmaceuticals and really wreaks havoc on her. But, you know, God bless, she's still
alive.
here with
She's
us.
around.
Yeah, so it's a big blessing.
You know, it's crazy. If I remember the statistics correctly, it's like hundreds of millions, if not billions, have been poured into cancer research over the last like 60, 70 years. And in that same time period, I want to say that cancer survival rates have only gone up by 5% or something like that. But at the same time, cancer rates themselves have skyrocketed in the United States. And then the other piece of those statistics is there's something, I'll have to refresh my memory and I'll throw it in the show notes or something like that. But Jeff Weitzman produced this incredible documentary called Cancer Can Be Killed, and then also another one called Flipping the Script. And in it, he goes into detail about how those cancer statistics on the survival rates, even those are manipulated because people who don't finish chemotherapy and die before they can even finish chemotherapy are oftentimes not counted. And I think that piece might be incorrect, but in general, it's no surprise that seeing that industry from the inside, despite you being unhealthy at the time, you're like, wait, what a second. Like, why would you be feeding people this? So from there, after seeing that experience with your mom, what led you to where you are now?
Yeah. So one other thing I'd like to add about that experience, the doctor who was treating my mom, you'd like to think a doctor whose life, you know, he has people's life in their hands, right? You'd think they were healthy themselves. And this guy was very overweight, had terrible acne. He was the opposite of healthy. So that also really stuck out to me. I feel like if you're healing people, you lead by example, right?
Yeah.
So after the experience with my mother, I took a good hard look at myself in the mirror, and actually a friend called me out, told me that I was a fat pig, essentially.
But thank God for good friends,
he's a good
Even
friend.
if it's like tough love at the time, it's like, damn, dude, that's kind of mean. But
I got so mad at him.
Yeah.
But that night I got home and I looked in the mirror. I'm shirtless, standing in the mirror, and I'm just like, yeah, he's right.
Yeah.
So I finally found the will to change, and I just jumped in head first. And I was like, I'm an extremist in the sense that I go all out when I do commit to things. So I was like, all right, I'm going to fast for like 3 days, just right off the bat.
Had you looked into fasting or anything?
I started to a little bit.
Okay,
I didn't know what I was doing though.
That'd been cool if you intuitively were just like, yeah, I'm going to fast. That sounds good.
Yeah, right. I looked into it a little bit, but not enough.
Yeah.
I should have been supplementing with electrolytes and things, but I just did it. And I was like, so I got addicted to fasting. So I was doing like these 3-4 day fasts and doing CrossFit in the middle of it and feeling like I was going to die. Definitely not the best way to do it, folks, but I lost a lot of weight. And through that process, I noticed my craving, the food I desired changed after I started fasting. And the refined carbs and the beer and the cheese, all this stuff I was eating a lot of, I no longer desired. And I started desiring more organic whole foods. So through that process, I shed almost 90 pounds over the course of like 2 years. And there was like spurts where I'd lose a bunch, then gain a little back. So it was this process.
How old were you at the time?
Probably 24, 25. Yeah. Okay. I'm 34 now.
Okay.
So yeah, it was an amazing process, and I wouldn't change it for anything because I learned so much. That's how you learn, is through experience. So, and just the difference in how you feel after losing the weight, how you carry yourself. It's really one of the best things you could do for yourself.
Amen, man. So from there, I mean, you were already an athletic guy. You despite being really overweight because you're playing football, and I'm sure you had weights and stuff like that. But as you're on this journey of fasting, and it's interesting you say you naturally started craving different foods. The same thing is said by so many friends of mine. An example, Johnny Juicer, he started juicing, right? And then just by juicing, he naturally started craving spiritual things and became more spiritual. Totally. And I think it's like, as you cleanse your body, you naturally start doing countless things that are more natural.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. You're cleaning your vessel, and the truth about other things starts shining through, right?
Yeah.
So there's not all these blockages. So, and you know what? It was actually during a fast where I had I don't know if it was God or something special shining through, but I got the idea for organic muscle.
Okay.
Yeah. The origin of the company actually started. So I'm on my fitness journey, and I'm starting to take the gym more seriously. So I'm taking pre-workouts, and as everyone I talk to has an experience with a pre-workout where they felt like they were going to die, and that's what happened to me.
Dude, I used to take C4, and then this other one that I used to take that was worse than C4, and then I was taking like nitrous oxide at one point.
Yeah.
Like,
might as well smoke some crack and go to the gym. So I got super sick. I got so sick, and I felt like my throat was closing up, that I went out into my front yard, and I was like, I'm just going to lay down here, and I hope someone finds me and can like take me to the hospital or whatever. Yeah. So I go outside and I lay down. And then like 2 minutes later, I start feeling better. So I just
Were you laying on the grass?
yeah.
That's probably why.
Oh yeah, I never even thought
you ever
about
thought
that.
about that?
I never thought about that.
You're grounding your whole body.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude, that's crazy. I guess intuitively just knew that that
Yeah.
might be the thing to do. But then I got up and I'm kind of embarrassed. Like, I hope no one saw me just like flop out on the ground.
Because you were probably already a pretty like fit, muscular dude at the time.
I was getting there. Yeah, I was still a little chunky.
Okay.
But so I get up, go back inside, and I'm thinking about the experience. And then like a week later, I'm doing a fast. And I've been thinking about that experience and like wanting to use something healthier. And the name just came into my mind, organic muscle.
Wow.
Just like plopped into my brain. And I was like, why has no one else made a healthy organic pre-workout? And the name organic muscle is so perfect. Why is why is this URL available? Why has no one else done this? And I became so obsessed with it. I didn't have any really much experience with it, but I just felt really guided, and it was a beautiful thing where I became totally obsessed with it to the point where I made it a reality.
And was your sister already an herbalist at the time? Because I know we talked off camera.
She's younger than me. I think she was interested in it, but she wasn't like a clinical herbalist yet.
So what was your first formulated thing that you made?
Our pre-workout. Yeah, we came out with the first ever certified organic pre-workout.
And you have strawberry, mango.
That's a lemon berry. We also have passion fruit guava. We have 3 flavors.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it works incredibly well.
Dude, yeah, it does. So I haven't shown you that yet, but I have a gym right in my garage with a bunch of like rubber plates and stuff. I do a lot of CrossFit style workouts too. But and I historically have taken pre-workouts, but I stopped because I'm like, dude, these are horrible for me and I know it. And especially as I've been on a holistic health journey since 2016. I stopped taking them around 2018. I'm like, there's no way I can take any of this stuff. And from there, that was the window, I think, from 2016 through 2018, where I was taking like nitric oxide because I thought it was quote better. But still, I don't think that's stuff to unnaturally like open your blood vessels like that. Seems a little weird. But
well, and you could do that with beetroot and pomegranate.
See, this is
it's even more effective, and it's nutritious. And I just find it so interesting. Like, I really feel like the fitness industry is such an oxymoron because you have these people who are going for a certain aesthetic look and they're truly sacrificing their health. Yeah. I see guys at the gym all the time and they're juiced to the gills. You know, they're on HGH and different stacks of different types of steroids. And then they're drinking like canned energy drinks. Yeah. And I'm like, what is the price of this?
Because they look, and it's like the superficial side of quote health and fitness, right? Because, I mean, yes, they may look aesthetically better than a lot of people. I mean, dudes that are absolutely jacked with like 2% body fat, right? But the trade-off there is inside of those people, there's got to be just utter chaos going on inside their bodies. You know?
Yeah, and spiritually, like the sacrifice you're making, it seems. I mean, I'm a big believer in freedom, and if it's bringing people joy, then I'm all for it. Yeah. But what I don't like is like the social media stuff where there's impressionable young people following it, and there's so many young people getting on steroids now. Yeah. There's the trend twins and all this stuff, and it's like become cool to be injecting a shit ton of steroids. And it's a big decision. It's like, you probably shouldn't get a tattoo when you're 18, right? Yeah. Like, might want to think, I got a tattoo when I was 16 and it was like horrible.
Lips tattoo.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what you don't want to do. So it's been an honor just to give a different option to people and let people know that there's a healthier route. Like one of my business partners, Chris, he's 45. Dude looks like he's 32. Freaking 8-pack. He looks like Aquaman. It's incredible. And it's just the clean diet. That's and grounding and some like these absolute basics. Yep. But if you turn it into a lifestyle, you could look so good.
Yeah, man. And that just shows that like so many people are so misled in the quote fitness industry. And it's a weird thing in the Army where there's a culture of being fit, of course, in the military. But despite that, it's exactly what you're pointing to, like the unhealthy version of fitness. And I subscribed to that for a while. I had a few of my friends when we were at West Point, take H-Draw for some time. Are you familiar with H-Draw?
No.
H-Draw, from my understanding, is like a much less potent form of steroids, essentially. And they were taking it, but it like made their junk shrink up. It like made them get super fat if they weren't working out consistently. It made them super groggy and angry. Have you ever did you ever experiment with any of that stuff? Or
No, I haven't. I've kept it natural, but I like my testosterone levels are over 1,000 naturally.
It's because you're taking Tonkat Ali.
The Tonkat Ali helps.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's our. We just
here.
came out with the first ever certified organic Tonkat Ali.
Yeah, I've been taking it, man. I've been taking it.
It's great. Yeah, it's like the most well-studied herb in the world for boosting testosterone. And we were able to source the first ever certified organic. They actually like built a farm in the middle of the jungle in Indonesia where it's native to, and it's this family that's been cultivating Tonkat for hundreds of years.
What reason were they cultivating it? Were they aware of the like testosterone?
Oh yeah,
okay.
Cool. Well, I don't know if they were specifically aware of the testosterone, but they knew about the effects on energy and libido, things which are side effects of having healthy testosterone levels.
Wow.
So
let's talk about. I want to talk about testosterone and the war on testosterone right now. The war on masculinity. We'll probably go into that. But let's talk about the pre-workout. So as you were formulating this, what was that process like? Like, were you looking at the unnatural forms of pre-workout and sort of like, how can I find a more natural version of that? Or were you like, okay, what herbs produce the same effect that you're looking for with pre-workout? Just tell me about the process.
So I was like, well, what do I want to experience in the gym? I want energy. I want stamina. I want to be able to work out for a longer period of time and feel good. I want circulation and pump, and I don't want to feel like a jittery crackhead. I don't want to be, have itchy skin and heart palpitations. And I don't want to crash. That was one of the main
things, is like the feeling like you're crawling out of your skin, like itching your face like crazy.
Oh, it's so uncomfortable. Some people actually like that, surprisingly.
I don't.
Not a fan.
I could see where it would kind of be, what's that one stuff that a lot of power lifters take that they sniff like right before
the smelling salts.
Yeah, smelling salts. Yeah. I could see where it would maybe kind of produce the same energetic effect of like making you just want to like pump really hard, maybe. But I never liked it, man. I always hated it. I would hate when I would take my pre-workout too early before I'd get to the gym, because when you're getting the itchiness as you're sweating and moving, it's not as bad. But before you're sweating and moving, it's like the worst feeling ever. You feel like you're crawling out of your skin.
I love spotting people on the gym who are on too much pre-workout. You like spot them from a mile away and they're just like, fun game to play at the gym.
It's a very fun game to play. People watching the gym.
Yeah.
Okay, so the process with the...
So I talked to a couple friends. I'm friends with a naturopathic doctor and nutritionist, and got some ideas. And I also I'm a big history guy, and I looked at there's some herbs that warriors would take back in the day before battle. So it was like this mishmash of ideas, and I identified ingredients I wanted to use. And then I was able to find there's not very many organic certified supplement manufacturing facilities in the country. So I was able to build a relationship with one, and I went over there, this still kind of chubby 25-year-old. And I was like, guys, I got an idea. And they were kind enough to take me in because I didn't have business experience. I was just shooting from the hip.
But did they really like your idea?
They liked the idea. Cool. And I think they saw my spirit, I was passionate about it. So they helped me nail down the formula. And then we had to reformulate it a couple times to get the flavor down, because it's not the easiest to make a bunch of organic herbs taste good.
Yeah, totally.
But we use Lohan berry, so it's a berry.
Is that what you use in all three of them?
Yeah,
all three of the flavors, right? You have three?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the essence, for passion fruit, you use passion fruit powder, lemon powder, things like that. So we keep it as clean as we can. We test all the ingredients for heavy metals and glyphosates and everything. So
that's incredible, man. Yeah. What did that, as the thing that stood out to me is that there's not many organic supplement producing factories or natural producing factories in the United States. What in this process of developing organic muscle, what insights have you gained into just the supplement industry as a whole? And I guess of course, we know that the overwhelming majority of supplements are total nonsense, right? And then a lot of them are synthetic, of course, too. And that's what's so amazing about yours is it's all food-based. It's coming from USDA Organic Farms, which is incredible. But let's speak more towards the more, quote, natural ones or ones that sort of advertise themselves as natural. What are your thoughts on all those?
Well, unfortunately, the term natural doesn't mean anything from a legal perspective.
Yeah.
So any supplement really can put natural on it. And, some supplements that market themselves as natural are good, but you have to take a closer look. I would say most probably aren't. A natural supplement can be genetically modified and sprayed with glyphosates and everything. So it's you just have to take a deeper dive. And again, some of them are really good. It's just on a case by case basis. But one of the most interesting things I've learned is how cheap, like a lot of these supplement companies are really focused on margin. So they're like, I could tell you it costs a lot of money to make our pre-workout and probably 10x what other pre-workouts make theirs for, just the quality of the ingredients. So they're really shooting for margin. They're a business, I understand, but
you're shooting for a quality product and something that's healthy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to sleep at night. Yeah. And I use the products every day. So
yeah. And well, I think it's what's cool about your path. And I'm not going to say this is a rare thing. It's that you came into this by way of your own experience that made you want to create something probably for yourself. Like you were on this fitness journey. And you're like, I don't want to take any of this crap, so I'm going to create something that's better for me too, that I want to be able to use, that I can stand behind. And through that natural process of creating something, I would imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's why you want to create the best products.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, if my friends and family use these products as well, like I want. Like in my experience with my mom, like I don't want to see anyone suffer like that. And not that our supplements are curing anything, but I don't want to be poisoning anyone.
Amen.
You know? Yeah. And just seeing the suffering when I was in the hospital, it changed me. And I'm just so like skeptical of the medical system, and I want to stay away personally at all costs and keep people I love away at all costs. I
trust the medical system.
Yeah, you're kind of a sellout, man.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk let's talk testosterone, because we already touched on Tonkat Ali, and you have again the world's first organic Tonkat Ali available.
Yes,
which is incredible. So testosterone, war on testosterone. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, all of
I know
us
that's like a very big starting point.
Yeah. It's a big topic. In a nutshell, we're being poisoned on a massive scale in many different ways, in so many different. So main one is the food supply. Yeah. But also the air quality, EMFs, porn, all of these things are affecting testosterone levels, and they've been dropping 1 to 2% per year since the 50s. So that's since the 60s. So, I mean, we're on the path to like having, I'm sorry, that was sperm counts.
Yeah.
Not testosterone. Sperm
but I would imagine they kind of go one and the same.
Yes, testosterone's plummeting it as well.
Yep.
And according to the trajectory, the majority of men are going to be infertile within a generation or so.
Well, and then we know that there's an agenda to take out, or to, I think this is the correct word, emasculate men.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And I would imagine that testosterone, well, of course, like it goes without saying that testosterone levels are like one and the same with that process. So in order to take out men, deplete the natural testosterone that's in men, right?
Yeah.
So Tonkat Ali, do you know how it actually works to help?
So the mechanism of action is still being studied.
I appreciate that, because people just throw out an answer like, I think it does.
Yeah, so there's theories about it, but we don't know for sure. But we do know that it does boost testosterone up to 30.
Have you taken your testosterone levels before and after?
So yeah, I'm working on it. Yeah.
Okay.
You see the demasculization of men, or is it emasculate?
I don't know what the word is. Someone correct us.
Whatever it is, but it's coinciding with the drops of testosterone levels, right? I believe it's by design, but either way, it's happening. But the good news is there's plenty of things you can do to boost your testosterone naturally where you don't need to go on testosterone. Another thing about injecting testosterone, the world's in a very fragile place. Supply chains, everything. Like, do you really want to be reliant on exogenous testosterone for the rest of your life? Or do you want to have these strategies, methods, foods in place to do it naturally?
What do you think about people who use T boosters?
T boosters?
Or like a testosterone booster, like a synthetic one that you're injecting into you?
It's not my preference, but if it helps, I mean, individuals have to make a decision.
But the point is that there's natural ways to boost testosterone.
Yeah, totally. Toncatali, tribulus, boron, zinc, just getting more zinc, eating oysters, grounding, getting sunlight, not watching porn all the time, maybe doing a little semen retention from time to time, fasting. Fasting boosts, if you do a 48 to 72 hour fast, it could boost your HGH by like 400%.
Wow.
It's insane. And I believe it's like from an evolutionary perspective, it's like when you haven't eaten in a while, it's like a survival mechanism to go out and hunt and kill a woolly mammoth or whatever. Sense. So there's so much you could do. Also, competition, like playing sports.
So funny you're saying that too, because I just played in a men's league basketball game for the first time, like played an actual competitive sport with a team for the first time in like 4 years.
Nice.
So sad. Because I've been craving that. I think men naturally like crave competition, you know?
Deeply, yeah. Yeah, it's so important.
What do you do for that?
I play pickleball and I train really
pickleball,
hard. Yeah.
Everyone's playing pickleball now.
Yeah, it's great. And then I train with Aaron, our buddy Aaron Abke.
Yeah. And Aaron's an animal. Dude is an animal.
He is an absolute animal, and people wouldn't know because he's like the most centered, balanced. He's just an amazing person.
Yeah.
And then he gets in the gym and he is like a beast.
He's a beast.
He puts me to shame, and I'm pretty strong.
Well, he was. Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong if you watch this, but I think he was training. No, he was for sure.
He was a professional
CrossFit athlete for a while.
He's
a professional bodybuilder.
Yeah.
He's a professional bodybuilder. But then he also trained as a CrossFit athlete. Like, I'm pretty sure he has a games profile, like on the CrossFit Games website.
Yeah.
So
he's a beast.
He's a beast, man. And he's such a good dude, too.
It's the greatest.
Yeah. Shout out to Aaron.
Shout out to Aaron.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about some of the other products you have, too. So you have this plant-based protein powder.
Yes. Yep. Highest protein content for a vegan protein on the market. I'm not personally a vegan, but I'm a big believer in a balance between like a healthy omnivorous diet. And for me personally, and a lot of the people I talk to when it comes to protein powders, plant-based proteins just digest better.
Okay.
And we have a full amino acid profile in there. So you're covering the different bases. So, yeah, some people I've noticed digest way better, but most seem to digest this form better.
Okay. Yes. I've never really taken whey protein because I was really against milk for a while, or like any milk substances. But I drink raw milk now, so I haven't really revisited that. But ironically, I've only used plant-based protein powders if I do use a protein powder, but then I mix in raw liver and raw milk. And
that's awesome.
Stuff. Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
The beauty of these supplements is you could be kind of an alchemist, and like, I love mixing and matching and experimenting and making different concoctions. So it gives everyone the flexibility. If you want to add some beef liver or beef testicles in there, do your thing.
So aside from what's this one on the end?
This is our Reds. It's like a beetroot supplement. Okay. Yeah.
What is it good for?
Beet's great for your heart.
Okay.
And
so it's
your
heart
blood.
health.
Yes. Yeah.
That's important right now with everything going on.
Yeah. Which in turn helps your skin, and we also have our greens. So we're competitors with Athletic Greens. So it's interesting.
Are they organic?
They're not.
They're not organic. That's
so
a big
it's very
deal.
interesting.
If there's organic stuff available, like if you can get an organic version of something, of course you should use that.
Yeah.
Like, of course, without question. And so it is interesting when there's a lot of seemingly holistic, health oriented influencers who understand the importance of eating organic and eating clean, that are then promoting something that is antithetical to that. That's weird.
Yes, it is. And I will also say that Athletic Greens, they get their ingredients from New Zealand, and New Zealand has the highest glyphosate use in the world.
Wow.
And they're not using organic greens,
Oh,
which
that's a big deal then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
what's in your greens?
Spirulina, chlorella, all basically it's like 20 different.
All the greens.
All the greens. Yeah.
That's good.
And it tastes really good.
What do you put in it to make it taste good? Because usually greens don't taste great.
Yeah, it's just lemon, and we use stevia in the greens.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And aside from what we have here in the greens, are there any other products that you have? Or stuff
we
coming
have
down the
a
line?
product called Immunity Shield. It's got turmeric, aloe vera, organic vitamin D, vitamin C.
Here, let's look at the ingredients in this. I just want to share this for people so they understand. Organic mango, organic strawberry juice powder, organic turmeric powder, organic acai juice powder, organic matcha green tea, and then for the energy focus, organic maca, organic coconut water powder, organic green coffee bean extract, organic, what is that? Eleuthero root?
Eleuthero root. It's ginseng.
Okay, ginseng. Okay, I actually have ginseng in my cabinet because I was taking that as a pre-workout before I got yours.
Hey.
But the point is, this is literally all organic food-based ingredients, and that's
Everything.
What's incredible about it, man. And it works, I would say, better than the pre-workouts I used before, and better because it gives the exact same effect, except for all of the negative effects that I traditionally had with other pre-workouts are not there, and that's what I love about it. But it works great. We all know that Big Ag is poisoning our food supply, and Big Pharma's so-called medicine is straight up poison. What most people aren't aware of, though, is that most supplements are also filled with artificial sweeteners, dyes, GMOs, glyphosate, and a host of other toxic ingredients, even many of the more natural supplements. My good buddy James Benefico dedicated his life to crafting the world's cleanest, most nutritious organic supplements after a pre-workout energy drink caused heart palpitations so severe that he almost landed up in the ER. Organic Muscle was born, revolutionizing sports nutrition by using exclusively non-GMO ingredients from USDA organic farms. Since then, tens of thousands of people, including myself, have leveled up their fitness and their health with Organic Muscle's award-winning natural pre-workout. There's no jitters, no heart palpitations, no itchy skin, just nourishing organic food and herb-based ingredients for clean, sustained energy, strength, endurance, and recovery. Numerous studies have shown that Tonka Ali is the most effective herb in the world for naturally boosting testosterone levels. And we know that testosterone levels are depleting all over the world because of what's put in the food supply, what we're exposed to. Organic Muscle has the world's first fully organic Tonka Ali supplement. I only support and promote things that I actually use, and I can say I legitimately use Organic Muscle products. Use code FORWARD15 at checkout for 15% off at organicmuscle.com. So the other thing that you wanted to talk about, and I want to talk about this too, is counting calories.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
So it serves a purpose, especially for people who are beginning their weight loss journey, just to have an idea of where they're at, because so many people are flying blind. They have no idea how much they're eating. They have no idea what it would look like to cut.
Because the traditional thing, correct me if I'm wrong, is that if you want to lose weight, you need to be at a caloric deficit.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
So you need to expend more calories than you're eating.
Yes. Yeah. So it does serve a purpose for people who are new to this, and they kind of need a reference point. And I think it's a good habit to build off of. Well, I found a lot of people in the fitness space are a bit like dogmatic and cultish about calories in, calories out. And it's just a very small piece of the puzzle. Especially when you're talking about organic versus non-organic, like is the nutritional value of an apple sprayed in glyphosates the same as an organic apple? I like to consider the havoc the pesticides are wrecking on your hormones and your digestive system, your thyroid.
Another piece of that too is that we know that fat stores, that's where the toxins go. Like the toxins go into the fat. So you're making it harder to actually burn fat by eating non-organic stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we think about how it affects your testosterone levels, and testosterone is so important for how much muscle you hold on to and fat burning and energy levels. If you have more energy, you could burn more calories. So it's like, everything's interconnected in this ecosystem. And I always like to talk about my friend Craig. He's like a world-class power lifter. He's trained some like Olympic power lifters, awesome guy. And he did this experiment with his wife where he kept all of his macros the same. He actually added some calories in, kept the same foods, and switched to an exclusively organic diet and grass-fed or grass-finished meats. And his waist shrunk. So his waist shrunk, his arms grew, everything he wanted to grow grew, and his fat vanished. He was eating more.
Yeah.
So it's just, and I've experienced the same thing personally and other people I've spoken with. So we have a lot of anecdotal evidence that simply switching to organic is like one of the best strategies for body recomposition.
I know fasting was really big for you too. How much does fasting still play into your approach?
I fast a lot less because Aaron and I train really hard.
Because you have Aaron now. That's
yeah.
And that's perfect because then you have the competition piece. You have someone to compete against.
I've really been, I need to throw it's been too long. I really would like to throw another fast in. I've also found that I have amazing insights when I'm fasting and I feel very connected to God. And just
that's
like
another
things happen.
That's another thing that I want to ask you is, was the fasting that initiated your spiritual journey? Because I know you said you had the download essentially or the insight for organic muscle, but did you grow up a spiritually inclined guy?
I've always felt like there was more. I've always been a conspiracy guy too.
Okay, so that you've been like that for a long time.
Oh my God.
That's why you know everything about Tartaria.
Yeah, I've gone down every rabbit hole. And have you ever heard the term conspirituality?
Yes,
it's kind of like diving into a lot of these things. Really like, I'm a truth seeker at my core.
Totally.
And diving into a lot of conspiracies kind of made me feel like there was more. Fasting, I believe, played a role for sure. Psychedelics played a role. Almost 2 years ago, I lost my best friend to suicide, and that was a catalyst for a major spiritual awakening. And it's a combination of factors. So, but fasting can absolutely be an amazing tool for the spiritual seekers. I mean, Buddha fasted, Yeshua,
Jesus when he Yeshua when he was in the desert for 40 days.
You know, in the Bible, Jesus said to his disciples, not like if you fast, he said when you fast. Like it's
like
almost
it's a standard. That's what everyone does.
It's a standard, And it's really about conquering this like material world, overcoming it.
For me, when I did and I bet you had this experience too, when I did my fast, so I did a 17 days, 15 days water, 1 day juice, at the beginning and the end, so 17 days total. The most challenging piece was the emotional piece of it. And then the most beneficial piece that I found was the spiritual connection, was the connection to myself, the feeling of just bliss, doing absolutely nothing and not trying, not meditating or breathing in a certain way, although that would help, you know, but just sitting there doing absolutely nothing and experiencing bliss and feeling so connected to God, so connected to myself.
So grateful.
So grateful,
how often
man.
do we
that's
take our food for granted too? We take so much for granted. And after a fast, you're like, oh, a bowl of broth. Oh my God, this is the best thing ever.
Totally.
So it's great for gratitude and just to reset. I found after a fast, like I don't scroll as much.
Same.
I don't like a lot of the bad habits you can accumulate living in the modern world where it's kind of the standard.
Yeah.
It gives you a break from that and a reset.
Yeah, it does, man. And for me, my friend said this before. One of my friends, Mike Cardamone, who I'll also be interviewing soon, he said, you will fall in love with the feeling of emptiness. And that's like so potent for anyone who's done a long fast. You get it, right? Like the feeling of emptiness really is incredible. And then you do appreciate food more and you do just appreciate life. The feeling of gratitude that I felt to my core, like deep down inside of myself, was incredible. And I think that anyone, literally anyone, could benefit from fasting. I think that we're supposed to be fasting a lot more than we are. And I know intermittent fasting is becoming more of a fad now, which is good. definitely think intermittent fasting is great. But I think these extended, at the least like 3 to 4 to 5, if not more, day long fasts are something that we should be doing, at least seasonally, like every 6 months or something like that.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. You want it? Let's do one. We'll keep each other accountable.
I actually will, dude.
Right,
I've been wanting,
Yeah.
and this will give me an excuse because I've been saying to Kylie, I want to do another one again. I
Perfect.
did a 5-day grape fast. And
Really?
that one wasn't, I didn't feel great doing it. I don't know.
You didn't feel grape?
I didn't feel grape. I didn't feel grape doing a grape fast. I did Concord grapes because you don't want to use seedless grapes, because I would imagine that. Have you heard that like seedless watermelon and seedless fruits are not good for you because they don't have any, it's like supports like, right? So if you're eating something as seedless, then you're actually somehow either energetically or quite literally chemically depleting your sperm count in your body. Have you heard that before?
It makes sense. No, I've just heard that they're not great.
Yeah. Maybe that's why they're not great. I don't know. So you brought up plant medicine, and I know you wanted to talk about that a little bit too. So you said you've had some spiritual insights come to you doing some plant medicine journeys.
Yeah, I've had some really profound experiences, truly profound, beautiful, where I've come to know that God is the spiritual world is 100% real. Like any doubt I ever had is gone. And I've felt like just the love of God, and it's so beautiful and so like awe-inspiring, and it's just like it's so ridiculously awesome.
Yeah.
And beautiful, and it's so forgiving and unconditional.
Yeah, just deep unconditional love. Yeah.
It's truly beautiful.
Which plant medicines have you done to experience that state?
Psilocybin, San Pedro.
I've always wanted to do
it's amazing. They call so ayahuasca is more feminine energy. San Pedro is more masculine. They call it like a grandfather energy. So like it's like a kind, like, a father can be a little more stern, but a grandfather's like chill. He's like, he doesn't have to like deal with all
but still like a masculine protective presence.
Yes,
right?
yes, like hey,
chill masculine.
Hey, maybe you want to do things this way instead of that way, but like, just an idea.
Okay.
So I've had great experiences with San Pedro. Ketamine, it's not a plant medicine, but I've had some profound insights on that. But that drug also has a very dark side as well.
I'm so glad you said that, because that is becoming a fad where people are just like, even in spiritual circles, are just like doing it at parties and shit.
Yeah.
Like, and I've been at some in Austin. That's what I was just about to say. I've been at some in Austin where I'm like, people are just passing around. I'm like, dude, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel like an intentional way to go about something. It just doesn't seem right.
It's not. And a lot of people get lost in the sauce on it, especially because ketamine is so effective at alleviating anxiety. And the world can be a scary place. So there's a lot of escapism with ketamine. But also when done intentionally, you can have, it's a disassociative. So you can disassociate from your ego and like get a different perspective on your problems.
Is it like a zoom out type of thing?
Yeah, it is.
I don't mean that literally in that like you're blasting off somewhere, but you zoom out on your life and you can see it from a more objective.
Yeah, and you can see it from other people's perspectives. And so it can be powerful in that way. But I've seen people like, I've heard stories from people where ketamine and other plant medicines can open, you're connecting with the spiritual world. And if you're not in integrity in some ways, I truly believe, and I've seen people being open to demonic attack or influence. I actually have a friend who said that he was doing a bunch of ketamine and psychedelics, like very unintentionally. And an entity actually like took over his consciousness for like 3 days.
Whoa.
And he was like, I was just a bystander and I had to negotiate myself.
So he literally had what would be called a walk-in, like where someone was like taking over, and he kind of like on what's that movie, Get Out, where like you fall down, like sink into the abyss, and then someone else has your consciousness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've got some crazy stories. A friend was smoking DMT, and he started tripping out, and he was like, his eyes were closed, and he opened his eyes, and I swear his eyes were different. They were in his eyes, and he started screaming at another friend, bloody murder, and almost attacked him.
Oh my God. And you were there? You watched?
Yeah. It was one of the scariest things I've ever seen in my life.
Holy crap, man.
I've seen quite a few things. So just the message I'm trying to get across is like, plant medicines can be a blessing. I highly encourage people to do them in an extremely intentional environment with a shaman. Like, partying is fun and stuff, but there's a really dark side, and people get hurt. People die. I know many people who have passed away
from plant medicine ceremonies, or just like using like some type of psychedelics.
Using psychedelics, yeah, and like mixing them with other things. The other thing is, you don't really want to mix.
Mm-hmm. I think, especially in Austin, you know, you've been here 12 years, so you've probably seen this grow. There's a lot of unintentionality. I don't know if that's a word, but like unintentional approach to using psychedelics in plant medicines, that is really prevalent in the quote spiritual community. And it's like how I grew up going to parties and getting hammered, or like smoking weed, or, you know, other bad stuff that was there. It's like, okay, we don't do those things anymore, but then we're just using all of these psychedelics all willy nilly. And it seems like it's just a replacement, you know, it's not, it's the same type of energy that underpins this approach to psychedelics in plant medicines.
Yeah, right. Like an escapist energy.
That's exactly my point, because and people will also use them in ceremony as a form of escape too, or like I need to go see an ayahuasca shaman because I have all this trauma built up. And I'm not saying that there's not a positive effect in that approach, but the intention of, I'm going to use this substance to escape, either literally, which is what we see in the party context, right? Or I'm going to use this product to heal, right? But that's not what they do.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. We kind of talked about that a little bit before.
You know, an interesting thing I've noticed too in the spiritual communities is these plant medicines and some of these psychedelics can initiate like a profound connection with the spiritual realm and God. And then people like think they're super enlightened because they've had these experiences. And I've experienced it too. I'm not as goody two shoes who's perfect. I'm sharing some of the things I've experienced that can hopefully help other people from making some of the same mistakes I've made. But I've noticed in the spiritual community, people think they're enlightened because they've seen the other side. But then I wonder, like, what are you actually doing to help people? Because spirituality is about service, right?
Amen.
Service. And just doing drugs all the time that's service to self.
That is service to self. If we're going back to the law of one, that's literally a service to self. Yeah.
So I just encourage more people to, like, you know, spend a little more time like helping others.
It's like the integration is missed after the experience, right? Well, it's because, going back to the intention, we were talking about this a little bit before we were recording. It's like, I think people, the escapist mentality, they look at plant medicine as a way to get enlightened, right? To experience the etheric or astral realms or something beyond this physical 3D experience, or they use it as a means, thinking that, oh, this is going to help me heal my trauma. But that's not what it does. It's helping you to show you what you need to work on thereafter. And that's, I think, the problem in the approach of a lot of people in this space.
Totally. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And like, having that knowledge that God is real is very empowering and
well,
great.
Not just the knowledge, the feeling, the experience of it,
the
right?
experience, like yes. But it's what you do with it.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
If you just keep going back for more all the time, like, we're here to serve. And it's a good reminder to myself to just always, to all of us, we could always be more loving. That's one of probably the most profound little nugget I've ever gotten with psychedelics, was that the answer to pretty much every question, every dilemma, is just more love, being more loving, approaching every problem with more love. solves almost every problem, probably everyone. And it's just a matter of remembering that and implementing it, because especially with like everything happening now, it's so easy to fall into polarization and anger. So easy.
Yeah.
So many things are triggering. So
I think what comes up for me on the love thing is that there are many people, I'm going to try to articulate this as best I can, who sort of look at a love-based, a really heart-centered approach as, no, that's too woo-woo, or that's spiritual bypassing. We need to be masculine and we need to be strong and we need to take a firm stance and call out evil, of which I don't agree. I do agree that we do need to be calling out evil for what it is. There's an approach in that, though. And then on the flip side of things, though, I do think to some degree there are a lot of people who stuff down their own darkness and aren't willing to look at their shadow or the collective shadow and only just focus on love, which can be a spiritual bypass. So it's like it's a balance of being able to, like, having the capacity to look at a very dark situation, accept it for what it is, and not turn away from it, not try to suppress it, both on the micro level and the macro level, but feeling the feelings associated with that. Like, an example, I mean, you brought up a friend of yours who has 5 friends who died at the music festival in Israel. Yeah. Like, that is dark. Like, of course she should be enraged. She should feel rage for a little bit. Now, the delicate approach to that is not projecting that rage onto someone, dealing with that internally, finding a friend to help deal with it, so you're not perpetuating that in reality. But that has to be dealt with first so that you can come back to an authentic place of love. And that's what I see happening in like the spiritual community, is just like stuff all that down and then just force yourself to feel love. That's not authentic, you know?
It's a profound act of self-love to be honest and dive into your shadow and dive into like, and like for me, we talked about it earlier, like my mom's Jewish. I guess ethnically I'm considered Jewish, and I'm a conspiracy theorist who's Jewish. Do you know what that's like? You go, I'm reading this shit when I'm younger. I'm like, holy, what did these people do? Who do I come from? What the?
So you were aware of like the Zionist thing and like that whole thing for a long time.
I mean, dude, there's so many conspiracies about Jewish people, and I've come to find a lot of them aren't true, but some of them are true. And it's like, I can admit that.
Yeah.
Because I love Jewish people. I can admit the Israeli government is extremely corrupt and tried to genocide their own people with their COVID agenda.
Literally one of the most tyrannical, more Western governments in the world was the Israeli government.
It was, right before this attack happened, like the main, like this kid they put up as the main kid for like get vaccinated. This 8-year-old died of a heart attack.
Wow.
Did you hear about that?
No, that was right before the whole thing.
Right before.
7th? Wow.
He died.
Wow.
Of a heart attack at 8 years old.
The Israeli government was showing him, parading him around.
Yes, wow. Exactly.
Wow.
So going into looking at your shadow, I could call them out because I love the Jewish people.
Yeah.
And I freaking am so upset at the corruption and this evil agenda, right?
Yeah.
So the same goes for your own personal shadow, right? Mm-hmm. It's an act of love to be honest with yourself about this. And I will say, like, there's a lot of Jews who are very awake, but there's a lot who like can't admit that we have corruption and some evildoers within our own community.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, there's people who just pin everything on the Jews.
Yeah, is like say everything is the Jew.
Everything,
yes, exactly,
and it's like the Jews. What does that even mean?
Exactly, especially because like, what do you mean, ethnic Jews?
Ethnic Jews, like
people who keep the Torah, like someone whose grandfather was in the Holocaust, but they don't identify as a Jew themselves anymore. Like, what do we mean?
That term, the Jews, drives me crazy.
Yeah,
like,
it's
I guess I just used it, but
yeah.
But and it's really sad, and I see a lot of projection, and I hope people who are like, everyone's very upset about what's happening now. But like, there's people like after October 7th, they were like, well, Americans, like Christians I know, like, well, they deserved it because they've been oppressing the people of Gaza. I'm like,
and
dude,
that's just as effed up. Like when we say this is the problem, man. In my opinion, I think you'd agree with this, that people conflate the government and its corrupt happenings with the people who the government claims to have jurisdiction over. And that's the problem with all of this shit. Cause like, just like you said, people will point to, quote, the Jews and say that they deserve it. It's like, they had nothing to do with what the Israeli government has done.
The same argument could be used. Think about how much evil stuff the United States government has done. Does that mean you and your family should be openly be allowed to be slaughtered?
Exactly, man.
Because the government has done corrupt things. It's the same logic.
Exactly.
So,
and people are using it with Hamas and Palestine.
Exactly.
Too now.
It's the same thing. Yeah. It's the same thing.
And that's and ironically, that's what the Israeli government is doing right now. And it's, I have no problem, despite having served in the U.S. Army, despite going to the world's preeminent government indoctrination camp, West Point, United States Military Academy. Like, I was as indoctrinated as you can possibly be. And I have no problem separating myself from the happenings of the U.S. government and saying that doesn't represent me or what I believe in or anything like that. And when people talk crap on the U.S. government or point out the corruption in the U.S. government, I take no personal offense to that. Where, as an ethnic Jew yourself, do you think that a lot of like Jewish people, which again is a catch-all term, let's say ethnic Jews, so people who would relate to you, struggle to separate themselves from the Israeli government to some degree?
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel attached to it for sure. But I don't know. I think about the Jewish people I know in Austin, they're very awake, very awake. And maybe it's because I live in Texas and it might be different in other areas.
It's also because Austin is kind of like people won't assign a name to it, but we're like all fundamentally libertarian. We're like, we don't believe in the left-right stuff.
Totally.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so. It's really a capital in that sense in a lot of ways. But regarding, I wish people wouldn't say the Jews do this, the Jews do that. I prefer to call it the Israeli deep state.
100%.
Like, because then we're like,
you think Zionist is an appropriate term? It
can be. I also think Zionist can be a kind of a loaded term in a lot of ways.
Totally.
Because some Zionists just believe that like
Israel,
the Jews should have a right to self-determination.
Yeah.
If Zionist is determined as like statist Israeli neocons, warmongers, then I'm completely anti-Zionist.
Well, that's historically okay. The original desire for like the Zionist movement led into that, to becoming like neocon, like pushing everyone else off their land. And like, this is only for the Jewish people, whether ethnically or like keeping the Torah. So that's the context in which I use Zionism, is that like, it's people typically say it and say, yeah, well, it's just that Jewish people have a right to land. Yes, but the context there is that when you say that, it's the Jewish people have a right to land at the expense of another people. And that's what I mean when I talk about Zionism. That's what I personally mean.
Yeah. No, I totally understand. And there's been like terrible violent things that the Israeli settlers did when they came in. And there was atrocities. There was pogroms going on in the Middle East before the establishment of the state of Israel. There's really this cycle of violence that goes back so far. And it's like, I don't know if there's any solution outside of love and forgiveness. I don't know if there's any way to end the cycle.
I completely agree.
How can it ever end? Because each side can point to atrocities and messed up things and bigotry and all of these things. And you could look to both religions and find weird things that are a little 100%. Elitist and extremist. And like, I think we just need to start a new chapter. I don't know what else we could do based on love.
And this is the thing that brings it back to an individual solution. It is fundamentally like this collective problem that we're dealing with, and people are like finger pointing, and there is a lot of bad shit happening right now. I mean, like what's happening to people in Gaza right now, and then also what inevitably is happening in response to, because everyone in the world conflates Jews with the Israeli government. So now like Jewish people are being targeted and then Muslim people are being targeted. And it's just like this big mess. And the solution to all of it is fundamentally individual, that each of us does the work to face our own shadow and to come to terms with what is it, kind of like Eisen. I don't know if you watched my interview with him, but what Eisen said is, what is it inside of me that sees you as an enemy? And it's like that thing inside of me needs to be dealt with. And that's the only solution. Now, it's like knowing that while also understanding that, unfortunately, where we're at right now, the majority of mankind is not going to understand that and is not going to do the work to take radical self-ownership and self-responsibility and coming to terms with what is, right? Like the only thing we can do when looking at that and what it will potentially escalate into, and it has a potential to escalate into something pretty gnarly, man, is take radical self-ownership of our own lives and not perpetuate or project more of that into reality. That's the only thing we can do. The reality is it's probably going to escalate, unfortunately, because other people don't recognize that it is a requirement that they take self-ownership of themselves.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And the thing that makes me feel better is knowing that all of these traumatic events on a personal and global level are can be major catalysts for the evolution of consciousness, right?
Amen.
And bringing us closer to God. And sometimes you need to go down to go up. Like, so.
Well, look at your experience with your mom, right? Or your experience of your weight.
Yeah.
What has it led you to?
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I think, dude, I never thought I'd be talking about like, the Jewish people and all these things, but I feel inclined now because the world has gone dark, and like I want to show people that like you don't have to like become extremely polarized, and it's easy to put people in boxes, right? And it makes it easy. And like I think about the conspiracy theories about Jewish people. I understand why people fall into that. It simplifies things. It's very comforting to be like,
to just say the Jews,
good guys, bad guys. All right, this is easy.
Yeah,
it's simple. And then you start seeing everything through that paradigm, right? What's a little more difficult is to be honest and open and judge people based on the content of their character.
Individually, instead of collectivizing a group of people and saying, oh, this all applies to them. Yeah. I mean, ironically, that's what was done to us throughout the COVID thing, is like pointing to all of us and saying, you are this. Like even collectivizing anti-vaxxers, right? And saying, oh, then you must support MAGA. You must be a Trump guy. You must like assigning all these characteristics. Like, whoa. Yeah. I'm an individual, man. Like I'm a man and I have my own thoughts, perspectives, and feelings on things.
Yes, we're all individuals. And what I'm saying applies of Jews judging Christians or Muslims or anyone else.
It applies universally.
It's universal. It's universal. So I believe that's the path to healing. We may have to go through some really dark shit to come through an evolved, a more evolved society, but birthing pains. And I do believe that there's some beautiful things in our future. I've just experienced so many wonderful things and met so many incredible people who inspire me. So I'm excited. We'll see what happens, but I'm excited.
Man, I'm excited. I genuinely am excited, despite there being like total chaos right now. Again, I look at it, and this is where the law of one and just my own life experience has been so impactful, in that I look at traumatic experiences as an opportunity to up level and to grow closer to God, grow closer to my family, know more about myself, and become the more authentic version of myself. That's what I look at in any of these traumatic experiences. And I look at this situation between Israel and Palestine as the next, quote, initiation in the line of initiations, where there might be a major bifurcation and a greater polarization, where those of us who are aware of what's going on and do the work to not perpetuate more of that dark catalytic offering that is, start moving more towards a service to other path, like
Mhm.
recognizing that we are all interconnected, and this traumatic experience just breeds a greater depth of love and experience and connectedness with those around us, where people might go this way. And that's kind of what we're seeing right now, because we see so many people who, or at least I'll speak for myself here, I see so many people who I thought to be somewhat awake, in air quotes, who are now calling for bloodshed and calling for the perpetuation of that which will lead to more darkness. But then ironically, that just leads to more catalysts, which
right.
opportunity.
Okay.
So it's like, damn, is it supposed to happen? You know?
Yeah. It really is crazy how, like, all right, I guess we need some more catalysts. Like, you know, but and you know, I felt myself getting, like, after October 7th, I was getting like really polarized, and it hit deep, and it really hurt. But I just pulled back. I'm like, first of all, the more people you kill, the more terrorists are created, right?
100%. And
so I just really don't think bloodshed is the answer. It's communication. And
amen.
and
Could you imagine how powerful it would have been if the Israeli government, and I would never expect them to do this, which is why, of course, they did not, but how powerful would it have been if, after what happened on October 7th, and again, there's a lot of assumption we'll have to make here that Hamas is a totally separate entity, that the Israeli government was caught off surprise. But could you imagine if the Israeli government was like, no, we're not going to respond to that with more of this. You know what? We would like to openly communicate with the leaders of Hamas to see if we can figure out a way to resolve this issue in a peaceful manner. Could you imagine, like, openly said that to the world? And, you know, the Israeli government will claim that they've done that before and all these things, but I don't believe that to be true, especially looking at the various times Israeli government also broke the ceasefire. Hamas has too, of course. But all that to say, could you imagine if that's the energy that they brought forth on a mass scale and said, hey, we don't want to perpetuate more of this, and we recognize the things that we've done to Palestinian people historically. We don't want to lose any more of our people, so let's just talk, please.
Yeah.
Could you imagine that?
It would be a beautiful thing. I know, unfortunately, a lot of Jews have been conditioned, and after experiencing these events, I can understand why a lot of them feel this way, but they're very conditioned to believe there's millions and millions of people who want them dead.
Yeah, man.
And it's put them in a fear consciousness. And there's a lot of people who hate Jews 100%. And want them dead. But that fear consciousness, people can do bad things when they're scared. They want to protect,
like, preemptively,
right? Yeah.
Preemptive, like, bad things that end up leading to atrocities. And it's like playing on our collective emotions, because it's not just happening. It is obviously happening to Jewish people at large, but it's also happening to a lot of more right-leaning Christians right now, where they're like freaking the F out that, oh, terrorism is going to be at my doorstep. And it's interesting because now, I hate calling them the powers that be, because I don't think they actually have any power, but
it's a lot of illusion of all.
Yes, but for lack of a better term, that fear is what they play on to then usher in more tyranny. That's what they're playing on right now with a terrorism threat that will then possibly inevitably lead to basically exactly what happened after 9/11, right? Like the threat of terrorism. Oh, Patriot Act, here you go. And everyone willingly accepted it.
Yeah, these same patterns repeat. And then outside of Israel, Palestine, and the religious aspect, cultural, we got to think about, like, the economic, what's going on with the economic stuff and the military industrial complex.
100%.
There's a lot of elements to it.
Yeah. Have you seen that? I just did an episode with Michael Bryant where he talks about Netanyahu literally spoke and said that they had a plan for an economic corridor that would be like a reinvention of the Silk Road, that would be an economic corridor that goes through the Middle East. And the map that he presented in that presentation did not have Gaza on the map at all. Literally, Gaza wasn't even on the map. So that's really interesting, kind of telling for this. But you talked about how you've spent some time in Israel. And so can you describe your experience, first off, of like the Jewish people or Israeli people in general? And then second, I'd love to know, because you said you spent some time camping along the border between Israel and Gaza too. Yeah.
So Israel is beautiful. It was a life-changing trip there. I was there for almost a month. The people are there's a couple things that I found were really interesting that most Americans don't realize who haven't been there. Israel is not white.
Mm-hmm.
Ashkenazis are only 25% of Israel. So
there is a lot of Arab
there's
Jews.
Sephardic and Mizrahi.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the Jews there are Middle Eastern looking, right? There was also a ton of African Jews. I was very surprised. Ethiopian,
like
black,
Jews?
yeah.
Wow.
Ethiopian and Nigerian. I'd say it was like 5%, maybe.
Wow.
There is an energy there. It is really crazy. Like they call it the Holy Land, and something does feel holy.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that can like be used for violence and like a sense of superiority, but I felt like something like there's just this energy there that's really crazy.
It's like in the land.
It's like in the land. And
yeah.
I felt it. Maybe I was hallucinating it, but it felt very real to me. My experience with the Israeli people, they were very beautiful and warm. It's funny. I see like, again, I read a lot of like conspiracy forums and we've all seen those posts, like the anti-Jew post where it's like the white guy with the
big hook nose,
nose, and like, and they'll show Rachel Levine, you know, who's the like transgender. What's her role?
I think she's the. Is she the health? What's the position that the one Jerome Adams had? I forget the name of the position, but people know who are watching this. She's one of the like
health minister,
something
thing.
like that.
Well, that's again, that's like the most insane, absurd thing that she's at that role. What the heck?
It's an inversion of meaning. That's what it is.
But you'll see these memes and it'll show like Harvey Weinstein and these people, and they're like, look at these. Yeah. When you're in Israel, it's like gorgeous women, like the guys are jacked and really healthy. It defies all those stereotypes. That was another thing I noticed. I did meet most of the people I met loved Americans, like really love them. There's like this rumor, or they always say like they hate Christians, they spit on Christians. Like the people I met there like love Christians.
Okay, that's huge.
I know a few of them are Christians. Like a few of my friends over there, they don't really talk about it, but they're like they love Jesus and stuff. They might have a little different perspective on some biblical things, but they're like they love them.
Well, I would imagine there's a lot of Messianic Jews there.
Yeah,
too.
There's a lot. Yeah. That's another lie going around, is that they outlawed Christian proselytizing there. 2 Israeli lawmakers presented that to their parliament or Congress, whatever.
And it was struck down.
And it was struck down. So it's like if AOC proposes something in America, does that mean it was passed and that everyone agrees with it?
That's a good point.
So there's a lot of untruth that gets spread around about this. I did meet a few people who were extremists, like hardcore Jewish supremacists, but they were the minority.
There is elements of that though, but and at the same time, there's elements of that in like Christianity. Like, I mean, the people who walk around and say you're going to, like, bold face, you are going to hell if you don't believe in what I believe in.
Yeah.
Rather than living like Christ, of which I appreciate those Christians who are not trying to remind me that I'm going to hell every other week if like I'm not doing exactly as they do, or the jihadist Islamists who, like, there are some of that. The point is, there are extremists in every religion. Yeah, there is. That don't represent the rest of the religion.
I mean, I love Yeshua, like his, like with all my heart, like that message is so beautiful, and it saved my life after my friend died. But when I was in Israel, I would tell people, like, ethically I'm Jewish and Italian, but I'm like, you know, I'm a follower of Yeshua, and they're like, awesome,
cool.
They weren't like, you good Christian scum, get out of here, you know.
Yeah.
So
I do have a question. What are your thoughts on, like, when we were talking about this a little bit earlier, what are your thoughts on when we look at like the number of people who are in media and in various industries, the pharmaceutical industry, who are Israeli Jews? Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It's a problem. Yeah, it is, and it's true. And denying that or saying that is not anti-Semitic. Exactly. It's not. It's not. It's objectively true. It's a reality. Yeah. What I will add is context. People who hate Jews will be like, the Jews created communism, right? And
you see all these people who have contributed to maybe anti-freedom schools of thought. Yeah, but what about Ludwig von Mises? What about Murray Rothbard? What about Milton Friedman? The greatest, arguably some of the greatest philosophers of
I love Murray Rothbard. Exactly.
libertarian free market thought were also Jewish.
Yeah.
So why is that conveniently left out from these discussions? You know,
it's such a good point. And what we were talking about before this, and this is kind of what I think, is that yes, like many of those people are Jewish or claim to be, right? But it's like they hide behind the Jewish label because they know it is a liability shield because of the trauma of the Holocaust, that at the moment you could point them out, they can claim like, oh, you're anti-Semitic, and use the Holocaust trauma to kind of push it.
It's been such a disservice to Jews, like and a lot of the stuff that ADL does. It's
oh my God, yeah.
You're just making enemies by like calling everyone an anti-Semite.
Oh my God, man.
It's super annoying. It's not cool. But yeah, I think Jews have traditionally really valued education, and I think there's a lot of in-group preference where they help each other get to certain roles. And
well, it's also because it's like there's relatively smaller amounts of Jews in the world than Christians and Muslims, from my understanding too. Right?
Yeah, so Jews are only 0.2% of the world population.
Yeah. So I mean, I could totally see then where people would think there is a Jewish conspiracy, though, based on the reality that there is objectively like a higher concentration of Jews in those larger positions. But again, I think it's all that those people hide behind the Jewish label as the liability shield of the day right now. You know?
I think Jews need to start being like open and honest. Like, you see how we're having this conversation? I'm not offended by anything.
Well, because you know that that's not who you are at the core. That's the whole point of this whole thing, man.
Exactly.
Like the reason this has a potential, let's say, has a potential to be more challenging than the whole COVID thing is because yes, COVID was touching on our health preferences, which is a huge deal, right? Don't get me wrong, but also touching on political preferences and where we lie. And of course, government tyranny is no joke. But this situation, the three major world Abrahamic religions, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, are all being tested right now, insofar as that if you think that is who you are at your identity, like you really think that's who you are, then you are subject to being strung along and being enraged. Or if that ideology or that identity group is threatened, you take it as your life being threatened. And I think it's both intentional on the nefarious sides of things. That's what they want, because then we're all screaming and bickering at each other. But it's also an opportunity to reflect on like, yeah, you know, like you identify as ethnically Jew, right? Like you are ethnically Jewish, but it's like, is that who I am? Is that actually who I am? No, right?
On a deeper level, I believe I'm a child of God, as we all are, And that's why I think people also get upset by the chosen people thing. It could be a bit triggering. And I think some Jews do interpret it as we're the best.
Like we're a select group. Yeah.
I interpret it as the Jews are the chosen people in the sense that they were chosen for a specific role. And I think every individual and every group maybe was chosen for a specific role, but there's no hard and fast rules. But it does seem like Jewish people have had a really outsized, outproportioned effect on history. Yeah. And in a lot of ways. And I kind of think that, you know, Aaron talks about consciousness polarizing to light or dark. I think when they polarize really hard, and they can, you'll either have Jesus Christ or freaking, you know, Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
You know,
I saw your wheel spinning there. I'm like, who's the darkest person I can think of? Right
now?
Yeah. Jeffrey Epstein. I want to revisit the experience on October 7th, right?
Yeah.
Like what you think went down, because of course I wouldn't say that you're a military expert, and I wouldn't even claim to be, despite having been in the military myself, but it is known and accepted amongst most people who are in the know on military related stuff, that Israel has one of the most technologically sophisticated border defense systems in the world, right? Like where they have eyes on in Gaza too. Like they have operatives that are in Gaza, that's known as well. And then they have Mossad, which is the world's best, or one of the world's best, quote, intelligence agencies. And I put that in air quotes because I don't know if they're actually intelligent. Neither is the CIA. But then the events of October 7th, do you think that with what you saw on the border between Gaza and Israel, that there's any chance in hell that the Israeli government was really caught by surprise from Hamas, or that they just didn't effectively mount a response for, I think, 6 or 7 hours or something like that? What are your thoughts on all that?
I think it's highly unlikely.
Yeah.
I guess it is possible, but it's very unlikely. From my experience, I went camping in southern Israel, and the amount of military activity, the technology we saw, it was so advanced. It looked like alien technology, like the drones and they were so fast, zipping around all night. We were like smoking a joint, just watching.
Were you scared that you were smoking a joint and there's all these cameras?
You know, they're pretty open about it. That's the other thing about Israel. They like a lot of, it does feel free to a large extent, but you feel like, you know, you say the wrong thing or something, like shit could go down.
I mean, they are a tyrannical regime.
Yes, they are. But, you know, they embrace like certain, and they give the citizens freedom in some areas. Yeah. And I wasn't an Arab there, so I don't know. A lot of them probably don't feel pretty free. But I will say there's Arabs on the Supreme Court there. There's, I forget, it's like 10 or 15% of Israel proper's population are Arab, Muslims, and Christians.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool to know.
And they have full rights.
Yeah.
So,
and this is, to be clear, this is not a defense of the Israeli government. I do not defend the U.S. government ever either. But objectively, that is true. That is true.
Dude, I've been criticizing the Israeli government this whole time, but you got to be real.
It's objective. That's real.
Yeah,
exactly.
Just being real. But when I was on the border there, I just don't see how it would be possible. I could see the people being surprised, like the citizenry, because they do take Shabbat seriously. Yeah. They don't check their phones.
Was it a Friday?
I think it was a Friday morning into Saturday. Yeah, Shabbat starts Friday, goes through Saturday night.
That's why I was asking, because it's Shabbat. Wow.
Yeah. But, I mean, traditionally, there's been attacks on Israel during holidays and things. And Israel's small. It's so small. You could get on a helicopter.
It's like New Jersey, right?
Yeah, you could go from one side to the other in 45 minutes. Yeah. So I don't know how it's possible. The Hamas terrorists were just wreaking havoc for 6 or 7 hours before being confronted. Yeah. And I really don't understand how that's possible.
Yeah, there's no way. There's no way. Well, and there's some stuff coming out too, about, unfortunately, like a lot of the people that were killed in the music festival. There was Apache helicopter footage, and it was that, like, and of course this could shake out and this could be propaganda in and of itself, and who knows, but it seems pretty objective that it was Apache helicopter footage where some of the people that were killed in the festival was because the Israeli soldiers either were ordered to, which I highly doubt, or were just like so confused about what was going on that a lot of the people were actually killed by friendly fire, which is like super.
Yeah, that's sad. It's possible.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I don't have the answers to a lot of these things. I have my experience and my instincts, and I just really don't trust governments.
No, me either.
I really don't. After COVID, how can anyone trust any of these governments?
100%, man. And that does not mean to trust Hamas then either.
Yes,
like, that's the thing.
I don't. Those are bad dudes. There's some really bad people. Like,
you can't trust either of them. Exactly.
Disgusting killers. It's like getting involved in a. That's why this hasn't been easy for a lot of us.
Totally.
Because it's like pick a side between two murderous regimes.
100%, man. Well, and this is the thing too, is that people will look at what the Israeli government has done over the last 75 years, which they've done some disgusting shit to the people of Gaza, right, in Palestine, and then they'll say, "Oh, the Israel deserves it," kind of like what we were talking about earlier. And it's like, dude, people who were born there, or people who moved there, like, or people who moved here, like, am I at fault for what occurred to Native Americans?
Yeah.
Am I? No, I'm not. Like, absolutely not. So like the idea that the quote Israeli citizens quote deserve this is absurd. And at the same time, we also need to acknowledge that what has been done to Palestinian people over the last 75 years is really messed up. And that still does not mean that the actions of October 7th, again, assuming that the Israeli government didn't know of it beforehand, assuming that they were actually caught by surprise, were justified, because they weren't.
They weren't.
Like, and that's the thing. I can't think of any example where the mass slaughtering, despite it being accepted throughout history, the mass slaughtering of innocent men, women, and children is ever justified.
It's
ever.
reprehensible.
Yeah,
It's,
literally.
horrific.
Yeah, it's horrific on all sides of every issue. And
it really, like, you know, a lot of Jewish people I know, it fucked them up real bad.
Oh man,
it
I
really
bet.
fucked them up. Just like for a lot of people, the bombing in Gaza is really heartbreaking. I mean, I saw a video of this kid in Gaza just shaking in fear. I was just thinking how traumatized this kid is going to be for the rest of his life. Like, I can't imagine that level of fear, being trapped somewhere. You're being bombed by Israel, and then you have like a hostile leadership in Palestine as well. It's like, I feel like they're double victimized in a sense, and they're being used as human shields. I mean, that's a real thing. And in the sense that, like, schools in different places are storing weapons, so it's like they're dealing with double hostility in a way.
Yeah, they are. And it's the number of videos that I've seen coming out of Gaza at this point are so heartbreaking. And just like you said earlier, what's the best way to create more extremist terrorist people?
Yeah.
Continue bombing innocent people. And like that's where you have to question, again, governments, like, is it intentional? Are they doing this intentionally to destabilize everything? And
how many extremists were made on the other side during October 7th?
Exactly, man. Yeah. Like,
and that's like the whole point of, I'm not saying this was a false flag. I don't know. It could have been, but the whole point of false flags is to amp everyone up against an enemy, man, to get them in a bloodlust.
100%. And then it just spirals out of control. Perfect example, 9/11, right? Like, so 2,990 Americans were killed on 9/11. And then people were emotionally charged at the threat of, quote, terrorism. And then after that, I think the counts are upwards of 700,000 people have been killed in Iraq.
Yeah.
And then in total in Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom, like 1 million people have been killed, and then magnitudes more have been displaced, and entire civilizations have been ruined based on the initial act. And like, that's what this appears to be. Now, we can't say with certainty that it was a false flag, but that's what it all seems like.
Yeah.
And all that to say, we could go on and on about this forever, but like, the only solution is to recognize that all those labels, Jew, Christian, Muslim, even free thinker or truth seeker, like, they're useful labels to relate to people, right? And to share ideas and things like that. But that's not who we are at our core. And when you mistake that as you in a fundamental level, then you are subject to the propaganda and conditioning that goes along with that when that is either threatened, or when the group of people who identify with that start doing something that is absurd, then you start going along with it too naturally, because you think that that is you and you need to go along with that group. And so it's understanding that that is not who we are at our core. And I think even deeper than that, it's understanding that this body is not who we are either, because that's what allows those superficial labels to create it. Is the original sin, if you will, that's the only word I could think of, is identifying with I am the body. Because when you identify with I am the body, you are then subject to the propaganda associated with the body no longer existing.
Oh yeah.
Right?
That's the worst thing that could ever happen, is something happening to your vessel. Right.
Yeah.
And it makes you totally controllable.
Yeah.
Yeah. When like a mass spiritual awakening where society at large realizes that we're more than bodies, that we're souls, and we're children of God, that's when all this ends.
Yeah. And I mean, could you imagine that on some collective level? Because then the government's propaganda no longer works. It's done. It's over. It doesn't work anymore.
Wait, isn't it interesting how one of the major keys for realizing that you're more than a body is taking care of your body?
Yeah, it's true. It's like ironic. Yeah. Well, I mean, it is a seemingly finite, limited, lacking. It's not limited and lacking either, though. The body's not. But like it is a seemingly temporary vessel through which who we truly are, which is a nameless, formless thing that words cannot really do justice to describe, is temporarily occupying. In order to have a more fruitful experience, you got to take care of that thing.
Yeah.
But it's understanding that we're not that.
It can't shine through your vessel if it's all dirty.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. You don't have the true connection if it's clogged up and everywhere. But another one of those clogs is those superficial labels, because it's like, you think of any dark night of the soul, or when you're fasting, or your experience where like, or your plant medicine journeys, where it's like, it's uprooting the ego, and the ego is those superficial identities. That's what it is. That's what keeps the ego in place as the ego. And it's like having to uproot those and come back to like, who am I truly? What am I truly? What is the point of this experience? You know, and it's hard to do that in the midst of those things being challenged in a very, very deep way, which is happening right now. But I think it's a requirement. But yeah, man, this was a fun conversation.
Yeah, it was awesome. That was really fun.
Yeah. Man, I got to thank you again. I am very blessed to be sponsored by you all. These products are really incredible, dude. And I stand by them. I mean, I use them, so I definitely stand by them. You have any other fun things you guys are working on, or anything coming out soon?
Yeah, we're working on there's this, I can't say. There's some really exciting things happening. Cool. Some big partnerships.
Oh man.
With big athletes.
Nice, man. Nice.
Big
athletes.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah. Can't say anything yet.
Have you ever sponsored a podcast before?
No, first one.
Dude, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
You popped our cherry.
Yeah, you popped your podcast cherry. Organic cherries, though.
Yes, that's right.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate you, brother. This was a fun conversation. I feel like we could go for hours talking about just really anything. And you're a breath of fresh air to speak to, man. I really appreciate the man that you are, and I'm happy to call you a brother and a friend, and of course, really appreciate you sponsoring us. So
thank you, brother, man. It's been such an honor, and like really just a friendship more than anything.
Yeah, man. Love you, bro.